Hello, and welcome to Lost in Time, a series where we delve into the lost railway history of the ACT and go exploring to find what has survived the test of time. In today's video, we're taking a look at quite possibly the shortest-lived railway in Canberra's history, the Civic branch line. Built in 1921, the Civic branch was a lightly laid and cheaply built construction line for the transportation of goods into the city centre. Closely following Walter Burley Griffin's original plan for a railway to Civic, which we'll explore in a future video, there had been hopes that it would eventually open to passenger traffic. However, these hopes were dashed less than 2 years after opening, when a section of the line was destroyed by floods in 1922. Despite numerous proposals and recommendations, the line was never rebuilt, and whatever remained was ripped up in the 1940s. Before we start on our journey, however, there's one other line we need to explore first. Opening in 1914, the short branch from Kingston railway yards to the powerhouse was the first revenue-earning railway in the ACT. The first train to arrive in Canberra on May 25, 1914, was carrying cargo bound for the powerhouse and adjacent stores. The railway was cut short after the powerhouse closed in 1957, before being totally dismantled to make room for housing developments. We diverge from the main railway just shy of the station, and it's not long before we find our first surviving relic. Now half buried and reclaimed by nature, this spur of track is all that remains of the powerhouse branch. About 20 metres further down the road is a second spur, part of the 1966 goods yard redevelopments. The goods yard now lies silent, as freight trains no longer call at Canberra. The local wildlife has taken up residence. The branch continues, though its path is now lost beneath parks and apartments. Finally, though, we reach our destination. The end of the line once boasted quite an expansive rail interchange. As well as the powerhouse, trains also served the sawmill, stores building, and later the government printing office. Between 1923 and 1927, the narrow-gauge Brickworks tramway also called here. Today, though, all has vanished, with only the powerhouse surviving. Immaculately preserved and now housing the Canberra Glassworks, an art installation outside shows where the tracks once ran. Returning to Cunningham Street, it was just beyond this point that the Civic branch diverged, curving sharply north before straightening out for the run across the Jerrabombra wetlands. And it's here that we find our next clue. The route of the railway traverses two bodies of water, the Molonglo River and Jerrabombra Creek. When it was being built, the surveyors didn't want to bother building two bridges, and so opted to divert the Jerrabombra Creek to join the Molonglo before the new bridge. This diversion, with its harsh 90-degree angle, is still clearly visible from the air, though the creek has since retaken its original course. At the northern end of the wetlands, approximately where the Clare Holland Hospice is today, would have been the site of the bridge across the river. The same site today. While it's not possible to reach the creek deviation on foot, it is clearly visible from across the river just outside the hospice. The bridge was built as cheaply as the rest of the line, at an angle to the flow of the river. This lack of forethought would bring about the end of the railway less than 18 months after opening. In July 1922, severe floods hit the ACT. The Molonglo River burst its banks, and the entire wetlands area was underwater. The floodwaters on the Jerrabombra Creek, encountering the sharp right-angle turn, slammed into the railway embankment and destroyed it. Second, because of the bridge's angle across the river, Its pillars acted like sails for the torrential water, eventually being ripped out from under the bridge deck. In the aftermath, the railway was in complete disarray. The ruined bridge was left in situ until a second flood in 1925 destroyed it totally, along with whatever remained of the embankment. Continuing on, the railway would pass through what are now the car parks for the defence buildings in Russell. Crossing over Anzac Parade, it's not long before we reach our next piece of evidence. Running alongside Amaru Road, one can easily spot the formation of the old railway. From here, the railway roughly followed City Walk, before curving slightly as it entered Civic platform. A simple timber and ash structure, the platform was used for the unloading of goods and was never opened to the public. Approximately the same site today. The platform area is now known as Garima Place. From here we begin our approach to the last section of the line. Passing through modern shops, we come to Lonsdale Street, the terminus of the branch. Here there was a run-round loop and a few sidings. At first glance there appears to be nothing left, but in fact the railway is the very reason why Lonsdale Street is so wide. One of the lanes would have originally been the railway, extending as far as where the roundabout is today. It's here that we end our journey. The Civic branch line had so much potential, but sadly it was not to be. Still, for a railway that only lasted 18 months and was closed nearly a century ago, it's incredible how much of it still remains to be found.